Welcome to today's webinar, Understanding Sustainability. Thank you for joining us. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. Your phones are on mute. If you have any questions, please type them into the question box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll answer them at the end of the session. This session is being recorded, and the link will be made available afterwards. Our speaker, Brittany Storm, is the Sustainability Manager for MAPEI Corporation. She has a background in construction and as a sustainable building consultant. Brittany is a LEED accredited professional with BD plus C and ID plus C specialties, as well as a WELL AP and Fitwel ambassador. She's active on many sustainability committees and was recently awarded Coverings Rockstar at the 2020 Coverings event for her contributions to the industry. Over to you, Brittany.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to attend this webinar today. I hope everyone's comfortable, hopefully at home, maybe with a cup of coffee or lunch. I'm sitting here with coffee myself while we go through this. Okay, let's get started. At MAPEI, sustainability is a part of everything we do. When it comes to our company's triple bottom line, people, planet, and products, this presentation will focus on our products and their impacts on planet and people. And for more information on the other categories that we won't get into today, feel free to reach out to us at MAPEI, and we're happy to share our commitment to sustainability further. The construction industry has a significant impact on the environment. The industry accounts for 25 to 40% of the world's total carbon emissions. Mining projects extract minerals needed for construction materials. Companies then transport these materials to different parts of the world. And then both of these processes burn up fossil fuels, and the combustion of fossil fuels produce greenhouse gases. One of the biggest environmental problems related to infrastructure development is energy use. The global building sector consumes around 36% of the world's energy. Other studies show that construction is responsible for 50% of landfill waste, as well as air, water, and noise pollution, and the destruction of natural habitats. As the effects of climate change and other environmental issues become more pronounced, it's more important than ever to find ways to protect the environment. Fortunately for the construction industry, the same changes will protect the environment from harmful impacts, and they can also improve the quality of construction products. In this first section, we'll provide an overview of the green building standards and certification systems specific to our industry. Green building standards and certification systems establish environmental and health performance criteria for buildings, each with varying approaches. Some of these standards may look familiar to you, while others seem foreign. Sustainable design and construction gained popularity with the launch of the Building Research Establishment Environmental Assessment Method, or BREEAM, which is in the bottom left corner. This started in 1990. It was the world's first environmental assessment certification. This certification is more popular in Europe. However, they're making their name known here as well. In the early 2000s, the U.S. Green Building Council, or USGBC, introduced a similar program aimed at improving energy efficiency and environmental practices through buildings with the LEED Green Building Rating System. And that's what you can see in the center there, LEED. Other green building standards and certification systems also responded to the growing interest for sustainability as it relates to design and construction, including Green Globes. There's also the Living Building Challenge that was developed in 2006. It's considered to be LEED on steroids, as it's one of the more difficult certifications to achieve, but certainly achievable. Some building codes or local governments also have their own standards or certifications. You can see in the bottom right corner above MAPEI's logo is the Cal Green, or the California Green Building Standard. There are several states that have their own green building standards. Another example would be Florida Green Building Coalition, or FGBC. There are others. More recently, the green building standards that have been developed to address sustainability related issues as they relate to human health and well-being. In 2014, the well building standard was the first standard to come out that focused solely on a building's impacts on human health and wellness. So for example, well would look at designing a space so that a staircase is closer to the main entrance than an elevator would be. And then there's other certifications like Fitwell that have followed in Well's footsteps. Furthermore, some standards have been expanded to include supplementary programs and labels. For example, LEED has a supplementary program called ParkSmart, which is for parking garages, and SITES, which is a logo not shown here, and that's for parks or outdoor areas. There are a lot of green building standards and certifications. This doesn't put a dent in the total number that are out there. And in the next few sections, we'll talk about those that have the biggest impact on MAPEI and how we can contribute. So again, LEED, again, this might be the more well-known green building standard, the one you're most familiar with. LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. It was developed by USGBC and administered by GBCI. And they administer LEED certification for buildings and the accreditation for sustainability professionals. LEED's newest versions, which we'll get into, were difficult for manufacturers, designers, contractors, consultants to achieve at first, achieving certification. But it's getting easier and easier with more manufacturers like MAPEI and others in the industry that are joining the transparency movement. LEED breaks down as follows. There's the project rating systems, and they're based on project types. And then those break down into credit categories. These categories are made up of prerequisites that are mandatory and credits or points. MAPEI contributes to 2 LEED categories: material and resources and indoor environmental quality. Projects are required to earn a minimum of 40 points for the basic certification, and obviously the more points achieved, the higher the level of certification. There are currently 3 active versions of LEED. LEED version 1 started off similar to the way version 3 ended. So versions 1 through 3 focused mainly on using building products or materials with recycled content, low VOC content, and sourcing your products locally, both extraction and manufacturing locations. And LEED version 4 and now version 4.1 focus on using building materials, environmental product actions, health, more stringent VOC requirements, in addition to what was being asked in the previous versions of LEED. And we'll break these down a little bit further when we get to that. LBC, or Living Building Challenge. Again, this is what I call LEED on steroids. It's difficult to achieve for many reasons. It was developed by the International Living Future Institute. They have several certifications, including the Living Building certification, PEDAL certification, which means you're achieving 3 of the 7 pedals that are on the right. And then there's also the Living Product Challenge, which is selecting manufacturers that participate in the Living Product Challenge program, and they have many more programs and certifications out there. LBC also developed the Red List of materials that are not to be used in construction. They also created the Declare label to disclose hazardous materials. And again, Living Building is made up of these 7 pedals, and MAPEI contributes to the materials and the health pedals. And this diagram just shows all the International Living Future Institute certifications. Living Building Challenge, again, being the full certification and the one that's the most difficult to achieve, but we're seeing more and more it is achievable. There are 2 active versions of Living Building Challenge. As you can see, the credits remain the same from version 3 to version 4, but the requirements have become more and more stringent as the versions develop. The Well Building Standard is the first of its kind. This is a rating system that's focused solely on the occupants of a space. It was developed by Delos and administered by IWBI, certified by GBCI, which is the same certifier as LEED. And I like to explain this as where LEED leaves off, well picks up. So for example, I'll use plumbing fixtures as an example. LEED would look at a kitchen sink or a lavatory faucet's gallons per minute, and WELL would look at those same fixtures and ask how the water quality will impact human consumption. There are parameters with water quality that they would have to meet, but they're not looking at the same thing. They're comparing apples and oranges. However, there are a lot of similarities or synergies between LEED and other green building standards. WELL can be used not in place of LEED or living building, rather used at the same time. You can achieve both certifications at the same time, and it can be pursued on its own as well. You don't have to pursue LEED or living building to also pursue WELL. WELL focuses on various impacts on the body system. Each credit or feature, as it's known within WELL, they have various impacts on the human body. WELL breaks down as follows. There are credit categories or concepts, and these categories are made up of preconditions, which are mandatory, and optimizations, which are points. MAPEI products contribute to 3 WELL concepts, air, materials, and mind. And then again, similar to LEED and the other, the more optimizations achieved, the higher the certification level. There are also currently 2 active versions of WELL. There's no sunset date yet for WELL version 1. WELL version 2 now includes the materials concept, which further adds to version 1's VOCs and transparency requirements. And I did mention this one when we were talking about all the green building standards at one time. This ParkSmart is a supplementary certification program to LEED. LEED doesn't certify parking garages. Instead, they have ParkSmart. It's a certification program just for parking garages. And we have ways of contributing to ParkSmart as well. So it's not uncommon to see projects that pursue multiple rating systems at one time, which means you're juggling multiple rating systems at one time. The core and shell of the building on the left pursued LEED version 3, and the tenant spaces on the right pursued LEED version 4 and WELL. So again, you're constantly juggling different rating systems as well as different requirements and different material expectations for each of these. So it's important to note what works for one system might not necessarily work for another. So it's important to have these conversations with the project team ahead of time to find out the goals of the project. Also important to note, and I'll use LEED as an example here, building projects receive LEED certification, and this is again based on the number of points achieved. There's no such thing as a LEED product. Green products can contribute to LEED certification, but selecting green products doesn't automatically mean that the project team will achieve LEED certification. MAPEI project products can contribute to about 10 points under LEED version 4 or 4.1, which means that the project team needs another 30 points just to get LEED certified. And then I would say even more than 30 points, because we're not always guaranteed the 10 points that we just mentioned from MAPEI. You need to have the wiggle room in there to get these certifications. Again, products cannot be LEED certified. There is also no such thing as a LEED certified person. They're accredited professionals or APs. There's also green associates and fellows based on a consultant's experience and the exams that they've taken. And similar rules apply for Living Building Challenge and Well Building Standard. They all have their different ways of associating certification. It's just important to note that if a manufacturer tells you they have a LEED certified project to run. So at MAPEI, we've identified similarities among all of the rating systems, some that we discussed and some that we haven't. And we're selecting certifications that allow MAPEI to meet the needs of multiple green building certifications and standards. So as I just mentioned, you can see there's similarities across the board in different areas of environmental product declarations, VOC emissions, what they're asking for as far as transparency, disclosing material ingredients, and then other attributes that you can have. In addition to these similarities, anything with a star that you're seeing here requires third-party certification. And we'll get into those. Again, this next section will take a deeper dive into green product certifications that contribute to green building certifications. Just a reminder, everything we just discussed about was everything related to building certifications, and now we'll break down into the green product certifications that contribute to those building certifications. These are just a few of the green product certifications or attributes a single product can have. There are an estimated 600 product certifications around the world, with just 100 in the US. In this presentation, we'll discuss those that are specific to MAPEI. There are certifications that cover human health, others that cover environmental impacts, and some that cover both. And that's what we'll break it down based on their impacts. When talking to sustainability-minded customers, they will use the word transparency a lot. It means that they want to know what's in the manufacturer's products and how it will impact the environment and or building occupants. Transparency started with the formation of the Living Building Challenge, the Well Building Standard, and previous green building certification systems implementing health-related credits. So for example, LEED is now pushing a lot towards adding credits or adding innovation credits that have more of a health impact. It used to be that LEED was focused on energy efficiency in the environment, and you can see that with each version that comes out, they're evolving. Similar to food, we demand to know what's in our food. Why not demand to know what's in our products? The construction industry has a significant impact on the environment. Construction is responsible for up to 50% of climate change, 40% of energy usage globally, and 50% of landfill waste. So in this section, we'll talk about the impacts that a product can have on the environment. This is a life cycle assessment, or an LCA, and this is used to assess the environmental impacts related to a product in its life cycle perspective. A product is not evaluated only on the basis of its end use, but also its life stages that are taken into consideration, starting from the extraction of raw materials with which the product is formulated, their transformation and subsequent transport of material to the production plant, the processing phase, and the product in the factory, its packaging, transportation to the customer, application and usage, as well as maintenance, and until reaching the end of life where the product goes into a landfill or can be recycled. An approach in which all phases of the product's life are taken into consideration are called cradle to grave. If the evaluation ends after the production phase, it's called cradle to gate. You can see on the right, the cradle to gate, where that would end, as well as going all the way through the life cycle to cradle to grave. Using specific calculation software, the LCA is taken into account, And the data that's produced identifies these environmental impacts through quantifying the impacts of that product on the environment. So there's global warming potential, which is how much heat greenhouse gas traps in the atmosphere, eutrophication, photochemical ozone creation, abiotic depletion potential, all of this way over my head, but we do have a team here that can analyze environmental impacts, and then that information is put into a report called an environmental product declaration, or an EPD. EPDs quantify a product or a material's impact on the environment from extraction of raw materials through the disposal of the product or the material after use. Having an EPD does not imply that the declared product is environmentally superior to its alternatives. It's voluntary. It's a report. You have one, whether, not that our information in here is false, but you can have one good or bad. It's just a declaration of what was identified in the environmental impacts through that LCA. There are a few types of EPDs. There's product-specific EPD, which would be the first one that you see on the left there. This is products with publicly available LCA, or life cycle assessment, that conforms to ISO 14044, and they have to have at least a cradle to gate scope. This is a product-specific EPD for a manufacturer. It's what I would call a self-declared environmental product declaration, where you start to see value in contribution to green building certifications would be the next two. There's an industry-wide or a generic EPD, and that's for products that have gone above the self-declaration environmental product declaration. And that's the report that you see in the middle there, the environmental product declaration through TCNA for cement mortar for tile installation. And again, this is a general environmental product declaration. So you can see that the manufacturer is not recognized as the sole participant in the program. You can see that many manufacturers have contributed to TCNA's environmental product declaration. There are other general EPDs through TCNA, including one for ceramic tile and one for cement grouts as well. And the report on the far right is a product-specific type 3 EPD. And this is a report that's been third-party verified. And again, it's like external verification and review from a third party. And in which case the product is specific to a single manufacturer. You can see the difference there. One calls out specific products while another one has participants. And again, for LEED specifically, these three types of EPDs have varying values for purposes of credit achievement. Recycled content, this is probably one you're most familiar with. Recycled content is made up of post and pre-consumer. Pre-consumer is recycled content diverted during the manufacturing process. And there's also post-consumer, which is diverted after consumer use. It's important to note that there is a difference between recycled content and construction waste being recycled. A lot of times you may hear that I've heard on construction sites in my past life where I recycle drywall, therefore it has recycled content, and that's not the case. This is actually a portion of materials that are in a product that have been diverted in the waste stream during the manufacturing or use process. It's not throwing it out or diverting it from a landfill on construction site. Some products have third-party certification for recycled content, and this certification just demonstrates that manufacturer, or MAPEI in this case, made a commitment to conserving natural resources. Regional materials. Again, this is probably one you're more familiar with because this has been around since the beginning of LEED. And many products travel significant distances before arriving at the project site, and there's impacts associated with transportation that can be significant, like increased gas emissions. So selecting locally sourced products helps reduce the need for resources and helps the local economy if you can. MAPEI and other manufacturers can provide manufacturing locations to contribute to this, and it does not require third-party certification. You just reach out to the manufacturer and ask for the location of extraction and manufacturing locations, and they should be able to provide that for you. This is a difficult attribute to achieve, especially from MAPEI as a global company. And we're getting raw materials extracted from all over the world. And in some of these green building rating systems, you're anywhere from 100 miles to 700-mile radius, depending on which certification you're pursuing. And it can be difficult to achieve when materials are extracted halfway around the world. But there are other sustainable attributes that have a greater impact. In this section, we'll focus on the green product attributes as they relate to health impacts. Studies have shown poor indoor air impacts health and overall well-being of building occupants. Other research indicates Americans spend approximately 90% or 21.6 hours of their day indoors, where concentration of some pollutants can be 10 times higher than typical outdoor concentrations. Therefore, it's important to create a space to be comfortable and healthy. Several studies show that working environments with internal environmental quality, also lighting and ventilation, and other fundamental parameters lead to greater productivity in workers. Why does indoor air make us sick? Well, these common contaminants that are the main cause of poor indoor air quality and exposure to these, specifically VOCs, can result in a range of health issues from asthma attacks to headaches to elevated blood pressure. It's not just green building certification systems that are asking for VOC compliance or compliance with indoor air quality. We do get a lot of requests from do-it-yourselfers, and I thought this article was interesting about more than 90% of consumers consider indoor air quality to be extremely important or very important. And I also saw one of the purchasing drivers, again, this is for do-it-yourselfers, their opinions on what they would consider to be important when making decisions. Volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, are organic chemical compounds whose composition make it possible for them to evaporate under normal indoor atmosphere conditions of temperature and pressure. In order to be considered low in VOC and compliant with many green building rating systems, products have to meet two requirements. The first one is to limit VOC content. Content is as simple as it sounds. It's the content of VOCs in a product, or how much of the product is VOCs. Content of VOCs in a product can vary. It's important to evaluate, select, and install building materials that minimize exposure to VOCs. And there are also regulations in place for limiting VOCs in products. The South Coast Air Quality Management District, or SQAMD, has the most stringent VOC regulations in the US. VOC content is expressed in grams per liter. And South Coast SQAMD rules have rulings, or they dictate the VOC content for paints and coatings, including floor coatings, and also for adhesives and sealants, as shown up here. Tile itself is a product that's zero VOCs because they meet the requirements, being inherently non-emitting. At MAPEI, we develop products with low VOCs to reduce impacts to indoor air quality, as well as protect the health of the installers and end users. VOCs are expressed again in grams of VOC per liter of the regulated product, less water and less exempt compounds. And we can see here on the TDS sheet where it's identified. It's expressed again in grams per liter. And this particular product, Ultracolor Plus FA, shows that there are 0 grams of VOCs present per liter of Ultracolor Plus FA. The second requirement for VOCs is to have VOC emissions verified and certified. VOC emissions it's simply just the VOC content that evaporates into the air. They're high indoors, and these emissions are what installers and end users breathe in. This VOC emissions certification that we'll share next is voluntary. Manufacturers choose to have products tested. They're not required to do it yet. VOC emissions are tested to standards such as CDPH, and that provides the foundation for manufacturers' claims that a building is low emitting. And here is an example of a VOC emissions certification. At MAPEI, we have over 250 products that have VOC emissions third-party tested. The total volatile organic compounds, or TVOCs, as highlighted here, shows the total concentration of airborne VOCs present in the air simultaneously. And it's expressed in this case in milligrams per cubic meter. So for every cubic meter volume of air, there's 1 milligram of mass of VOC. Way over my head, but it's just important to note that there are certifications that test for this and are documented here. For purposes of LEED and other green building rating systems, manufacturers only have to provide this TVOC range or this certification. There's no providing a report that says that we've gone through testing. They just have to show this certification. And there's currently not a maximum level of TVOCs that you have to comply with. You would just provide the range that's shown on the certification. This is a snapshot of some of our labs in R&D. R&D efforts are directed to develop eco-sustainable or environmentally friendly products with low VOC content. And these products contribute to keep the air in our homes clean, safeguarding the health of both installers and end users. And we actually, in our labs, are equipped with VOC emissions testing chambers. However, to avoid greenwashing and to get that third-party certification so that for LEED or do-it-yourselfers purposes, there's the actual third-party accounting or verification of our products. We like to test VOCs before sending them out to the third-party labs. The next attribute we'll talk about is material ingredient reporting. Material ingredient disclosures focus on negative effects that building materials have on human health and wellness. Currently, there are no regulations that require manufacturers or their suppliers to disclose product information beyond their safety data sheets or SDS. However, manufacturers can offer to disclose their product ingredients should they choose to. It's voluntary. There are several reports or declarations that provide chemical ingredient disclosure information, including manufacturers' inventories or an MI, health product declarations, HPDs, cradle to cradle, declare labels, UL product lens, and more. Here's an example of a manufacturer inventory. It's chemical ingredients that are in a product are all listed. I know it might be hard to see, but we provide these MIs or manufacturer inventory reports disclosing our chemical ingredients to at least 1,000 parts per million. We recently started completing these reports in-house, and we're working with our suppliers as well as our third-party verifiers to make sure that we are being sustainable from supplier all the way through MAPEI's production. And we have these reports that are, again, third-party verified to make sure that we're disclosing chemical ingredients. The International Living Future Institute, ILFI, it has developed this red list of chemicals that should not be included in construction, especially if you're working on a living building challenge project. And according to ILFI, this list is composed of materials that should be phased out of production due to health concerns. This list gets updated as new science emerges, as well as when the Living Building Challenge or their similar PEDAL certifications come up with a new version. They typically update these. Green Squared. This is a certification solely for tile and tile setting materials. It's a multi-sustainable attribute standard. This is a certification that looks at our environmental, social, and health impacts. It's drafted by TCNA and in partnership with ANSI. And this is a certification, again, that's focused solely on sustainable tiles and tile setting materials. You can, and this is news to me, I worked as a sustainable consultant for almost 10 years and did not know that if you have flooring, specifically tile and tile setting materials that have green squared certification, you can get an innovation point in LEED and other rating systems like Green Globes. And here's an example of a green squared certification. So in summary, that was all of the sustainable attributes or certifications that are being asked of us as manufacturers. If you could have an environmental product declaration, and then that breaks down into the different types, having recycled content, having materials that are low emitting, providing a material ingredients disclosure. And these are, again, subdivided into the ways that you can go about getting those different attributes. It's a lot to ask of a single product. And this is a summary of everything I just discussed. So MAPEI offers environmental product declarations. We have over 30 industry-wide EPDs, 11 that are product specific. We do have products that have recycled content, both post and pre-consumer. We provide over 50 products with material ingredients disclosure or a manufacturer inventory, and that list is expected to grow. We do have products that are red list free, and again, we have products with low VOC content and over 250 products with the VOC emissions certification, as well as innovation or bonus for certain green building rating systems, the Green Squared certification. So how do you select products for your project? I would start with selecting products that by looking in your specifications. It requires a lot of research and evaluation, but the best place to start would be with the Sustainable Design Requirements spec section, or 01-8113 typically. There's a wealth of sustainable information available pertaining to what your project needs, both in the Sustainable Design Requirements as well as the Division 9 specifications. The key is to start with identifying what green building certification system is being pursued, after which the project team should educate themselves on what sustainable attributes are needed to meet that certification system's goals, and then how to find those products to meet those requirements. Ask the project team questions. Some of the questions you could start with would be, will this project be pursuing green building certification? What credits is the project pursuing? Are there any specifications if you weren't given any? And again, reviewing the spec sections and your specific spec section further to identify what attributes or what certifications the project team's looking for. Will every product meet these specifications? Probably not. It's best to work with project teams and the manufacturer to find the best product or products for your project, or they can help you find alternatives. There are also free online product databases such as Mindful Materials, EcoMedes, and USGBC. It just started with USGBC, is one called Better Materials. They just announced it at the last Green Build fall last year. And these are databases for project teams to select products that meet their project's sustainability goals. You have the ability to filter on the left. For Mindful Materials, for example, you can filter through CSI division, your manufacturer, the different green building credits, different certifications and standards that you're looking to achieve based on hopefully specs. And again, that's advanced filtering to narrow it down. I would recommend reaching out to your manufacturer first. The process of selecting, specifying, and collecting documentation for products pursuing these green building standards or certification systems can be time and budget consuming. I know, I've been there. However, manufacturers, including MAPEI, we understand that these third-party certifications for sustainability are becoming increasingly important as sustainable construction becomes the norm rather than the exception. And as new and more stringent requirements continue to be introduced in the sustainability context of construction, project teams you can expect to see progress from manufacturers, including MAPEI, in how we're growing sustainability on the different certifications and attributes that we provide for each of our products. Another example of how you could possibly get information would be to, again, reach out to your manufacturer. Typically required documentation, including certifications, labels, resources, a list of sustainable products and applicable green building standards or certification systems that a product can contribute to. Those can be found on a manufacturer's website, or they may have a different way of contacting. We like to provide these sustainability product reports, so you may have received one of these already. When we have customers that call in requesting sustainability information, we provide them with this updated sustainability product report with all of the applicable attributes or certifications that a single product would have. Are there any questions? I don't know if anybody can hear me.
Hi, yes, actually, Brittany, we do have some questions. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
The first question is, how do I request sustainability information?
That's a good question. One, I would start with your sales rep if you have one. They would be able to walk you through what product or products make sense from a technical perspective, and then they would reach out to us to get more specific product information as it relates to sustainability. If you don't have a sales rep, I would recommend emailing, and the email that's here, sustainability_USA@mapei.com, and they'll be able to help you with your project specific needs, provide those sustainability product reports that I just mentioned, and if needed, help you select products based on your project sustainability goals. Again, if you're a seasoned sustainability pro and you know how to dig for certifications through various databases, we sponsor Mindful Materials, and all of our products can also be found on their website. It's free to sign up and use if anyone's interested in checking out their database as well.
Great. Another question, is it important that certifications are not expired?
It can be. It varies. So if you have I'll use LEED as an example. It really depends on when your project ended construction, or when it started and ended construction. A LEED reviewer will look at the start and end date of your construction project and make sure that the certifications fall within those parameters of the start and end date. We just had that question come up yesterday for a project team that finished construction a few years ago, but didn't start the LEED certification process till after. And then they have to go back and find all of our expired certifications from years past.
Wow. Okay, another question. What is the difference between Mindful Materials and the new USGBC systems that you mentioned?
Better Materials is just starting. They are, I think if you go to bettermaterials.gvci.org, they are, forgive my technical lingo, I call them like the cloud above EPDs, Mindful Materials, and UL Spot. So if you go on Better Materials site and type in ultralight mortar as an example, it'll bring up all three databases that I just mentioned, EPDs, Mindful Materials, and UL Spot, and it'll pull that single product's attributes and what is shown on those various databases. They also have what's called verified for LEED documentation, and we're in the process of getting our products through that system. What it means is we submit our product sustainability product reports to GBCI. They review our product certifications to make sure that they're valid and accurate for what we're claiming. They put a report together, and we are able to share that with our customers. And from what I'm understanding of it, again, it's still in process, customers are able to name drop that they're using ultralight mortar as an example, and they don't have to provide backup documentation from what I'm understanding. USGBC or GBCI has a list that they would check and say, oh, okay, they use MAPEI ultralight mortar, check, it's already been verified. We don't have to check the documentation. So it's still very new, but check back on Better Materials for more as they grow that website.
Aha, and this one kind of feeds into that. What's the difference between the Green Guard certificate and the Green Squared certificate?
Green Guard is for a certification for VOC emissions. Green Squared is a multi-attribute certification that it does take into account VOC emissions, but it also takes into account other health-related as well as environmental impacts. And it's apples and oranges certifications.
Great. Okay, so of all the certifications that you shared, which one is the most important?
Without a doubt, VOC emissions certification. For many reasons. One, this certification is asked for on every single building certification standard, and we even have do-it-yourselfers that are not pursuing certification that are asking for this just because they want that comfort for their own homes and their own families. Another reason I would say that this is the most important is any material or product on a building project can contribute to the attributes that I mentioned. They can have environmental product declarations, they can have health product declarations, or recycled content. However, with flooring, adhesives, sealants, paints, and coatings, there's less room for error. And I keep using LEED as an example because it's the most known, but LEED version 4, 90% of a project's adhesives, sealants, paints, and coatings have to comply with VOC emission requirements or CDPH. Under version 4.1, it's a little less, there's a little more wiggle room, and now it's like 70% have to comply, but let's just say 9 out of 10 products have to comply with VOC emission certification. So you don't want to be that one person or that one company with one or more non-compliant products that ruins it for the entire project team. So I know this is a very long-winded response. And when project teams reach out to us, we do offer our greenest products, but we typically start with those with VOC emission certification, which narrows down the list to 255 products, but then we work from there to further narrow down based on what green building certification you're pursuing, what version, and what the project team's hoping to accomplish.
Gotcha. Okay, why is there a lag in construction finish date and lead certification? Wouldn't most do them in tangent to select the products?
That would be the goal. It really it varies. I've seen projects start and then halfway through construction, the owner or designer decides, let's pursue LEED or let's pursue living buildings. So sometimes you have to take a step back and in some cases pause where you are and reassess what's already been installed and how you can improve moving forward. There's a lot of components that go into LEED certification beyond selecting materials. Energy modeling takes a long time, commissioning. There's so many pieces beyond the material selection that take up a lot of time in LEED or other certification programs.
All right. And last, I suppose, what is MAPEI's greenest product?
That's a tough question. It's one that we get a lot. The cliche answer would be that all of our products are green, but that's not the answer that you want. We try to make all of our products as green as possible, as sustainability is a part of everything that we do here. And again, I know it's not really an answer, but what's considered to be green to one person may be completely different to another person. And truthfully, it's not possible to make all of our products green. We do what we can, and we make products green for what's being asked of us, as well as from our customers. So, a product with one sustainable attribute isn't any more green than a product that has 6 sustainable attributes. We try to select certifications or meet standards that make the most sense for that product, for our customer, and for us as a manufacturer. I think the greenest product depends on, one, which green building standard you're pursuing, what version of that standard that you're pursuing, and then what product type you're looking for before I can call out a specific product. I can't say that a wood flooring adhesive is more green than a cement grout, because we truly look at every product individually to determine what attributes make the most sense. And then that's why we have some that have more attributes than others. I could call out the greenest product for each product type within each of our product lines, but we'd be here for hours.
Great. Well, thank you very much. If there are any other questions that we didn't get to, we will address them via email afterwards. And we thank you again very much for joining us. Our next webinar will be in 2 weeks' time, and we'll be sending out the invitations very shortly. Please look for those, and it will be on exterior tile installations with Mike Granatowski. So thank you again very much.
Thank
Have a good
you.
afternoon. Thanks, Brittany.
Thanks.